Welcome to this afternoon session of verification of the Webinar Wednesday series. And today is October 7th, 2020. Thanks for taking time out of your day, this beautiful afternoon day that we're having of fall weather here, to join us. We'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you that might not be as familiar with verification, what that is the process of validating 3% of your free and reduced applications on file. And what that does is confirm the accuracy of information reported by households on free and reduced price applications. The verification process does not apply to schools operating all CEP sites, schools having just operating residential childcare institutions with residential students only, and schools that are only operating the special milk program. And the same goes for students that are attending a CEP school site, so you wouldn't verify a student attending a CEP school site, although if it's a mixed district with CEP and non-CEP, then non-CEP household may be in the pool that is subject to verification. Does not apply to the residential students attending the RCCI sites, and also students that attend a milk-only school. And also, verification does not apply to any student that whose eligibility has been confirmed as directly certified. So their program source has been confirmed. Most of the time that's done through the DCA system, but if you're able to confirm sources from the program directly and have documentation of that, then that would count as well. So who does verification at the school? The determining official is a person at the school district that determines the free and reduced applications and signs the original approval on the bottom of a free and reduced application. The determining official and the verifying official could be one and the same person. The confirming official is someone other than the original person that determined the application. And what that person does when an application is randomly selected for verification, they're going to want to review the information on the application to ensure that it is that it has been approved correctly to begin with before the letter to the household is sent. And as far as like all the verification materials go, where can you find those? So we have those under download forms in the MAPS system. So if you were to click on the school nutrition square in MAPS and then on applications, under the application menu, you would find the download forms option there with the list, and there's going to be a verification section under download forms where you can find the letters to households, the instructions, and all those things to get you going. The materials can also be found on the OPI School Nutrition website, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with. We have a picture of it here, and I know it's a little bit hard to see probably on your screens, but we also have the web address here in case you want that URL. And the path to get there is under meal eligibility forms and policy, which is the red section. And we have it split out now with different sections. So there's a verification section with the letters and the verification report, which you actually do submit in MAPS itself, but it's kind of handy to have the report as a guide to get you started as well. There's also another optional tool that we'll go over in a little bit, the verification application tracker, which helps you track the applications that are pulled for verification. So if you have a application that's randomly selected, that just helps the flow to document the process. And also the eligibility manual is another good place to find some of those more detailed questions that you may have or that could come up during verification. As you get into the process, if you run into a question, the answer might be in section 6 is the verification section. And it does have some Q&As at the end where it discusses, you know, verifying the household information that comes back. And it, you know, the whole process itself is outlined, but it's another good resource to use if you have questions. And as far as the sampling method goes, so which type of verification method your school would need to do depends on the household's responses to last year's verification process. So if during last year's verification, at least 80% or more of the household applications that were verified responded, then your district would be eligible to do the random alternate one method of verification sampling. If during last year's verification process, less than 80% of the households responded to the verification process, then your district would need to do the standard or error-prone method of verification. And with that error-prone process, what that would entail is you're actually pulling the applications that are selected from those that are within $1,200 annually or $100 monthly of the income eligibility guideline cutoff points. Oh, and if any of you do have questions, we do have, I failed to mention earlier, Rochelle Davies is on the chat box assisting. Thank you, Rochelle, for helping out with the chat box. But she is there. If there are questions that pop up, please feel free to inquire. I don't know if we'll get to all of them during, but we'll definitely save time at the end of this webinar to answer some of those questions as well. So. And if you're still not sure about the verification method that your school needs to do, you can actually check in MAPS on your sponsor application. It would be under item number 33, where it would entail which method your district has to do for verification. So that is one of the questions on that application. So if you're not sure, you can also look there. So as far as the verification process goes, on October 1st, you're going to want to count the number of applications. The count of applications determines how many applications are going to be in the pool for that 3%. So it is needing to be done on October 1st, that count of applications. So you're going to count your categorical free applications, and these are going to be any that were not confirmed in DCA as SNAP, TANF, or FDPIR. Can also be a foster care application if you have any of those that are not in DCA. You're only going to want to list students and applications on the report one time. You're not going to duplicate the count. So like if they were also directly certified and they submitted an application listing a case number, you're only going to count them once. And if they are in DCA, you're going to count them as directly certified. I think for this area, it'd probably be best if we also looked at the form, and we'll go there in just a moment. So the free income application would be the next category of applications to count, and then your reduced income. would be the other category. And let me pull up that form. Okay, so the form itself is called the School Food Authority Verification Collection Report. I'm gonna pull this over. And so on that report, what you're gonna want to count on as of October 1st, you're gonna count section 4, the number of applications. So yeah, again, it would be your categorical. These are the ones that are not confirmed in DCA. And then your free income based. Again, these are going to be any that are not confirmed as directly certified in DCA. And then your reduced price. And this is just the application count that you're needing to figure as of October 1st. So the total of all of your applications in section 4 is what you would need to add up and multiply that by the 3% to determine how many applications you should verify. And you're always going to want to round up that calculation. So if it's 1.2, if that ends up being the calculation of 3%, then you would need to verify 2 applications. So even though it wouldn't, yeah, the normal rounding rules don't apply. They always want you to round the decimal up to the next whole number, any decimal point at all. So let's switch back over to the slides here. Okay, so again, that is just going to be the total of all those applications multiplied by the 3%. Like in this example, it's 1.26. We're going to round it up to 2 applications that we would need to verify. So then what you're going to want to do after you determine how many applications you would need to verify is to do that confirmation review. So you're going to have someone else check the application other than the person who originally determined it, review it for accuracy to make sure it was originally approved correctly. And then before you send the householder letter, it's best to confirm that it hasn't since you received that application in DCA to make sure that it's not directly certified in DCA. If it is, and has since ended up in DCA and you're able to directly certify that application, that counts as direct verification. So then you wouldn't have to actually send the household a letter. That would complete the process right there for that household. For all others that where you are not able to directly certify or directly verify, you're going to proceed on and send the household their notification of selection for verification, and then collect that information from the households. You're going to want to be sure you follow up if they don't respond, and you can follow up multiple ways: call, email, mail. It's basically like flexibility is kind of key for following up with households. And in this day and age, I think with the technology that we use, any which way that's acceptable for your school district to communicate and reach out to them would be okay. So once you get that information back from the household, you're going to review that documentation that they returned and send them the notification results of the verification process. And then if there are changes to the eligibility, so if the household, after reviewing their proof of earnings or the documentation that they have sent in. If there's a change, then you're going to want to be sure to update your point of sale if you have a system to keep track of that for you. And we talked about the confirmation review. Those processes, if you do use paper applications, you're going to want to be sure that you document the confirmation review on the free and reduced application, have someone sign and date that so that there is proof that that was done. And yep, you send the household their notification letter. When you do send those letters out to the households, you're going to want to make sure that you double check the language, that it's consistent with the same letter that we have in MAPS and on the OPI website, which is the same as the USDA prototype. Make sure that the non-discrimination statement includes the same language before sending. So that's important to have that language consistent. And this is that verification activity tracker. And this basically is just a form. It's optional. You don't have to use it. It's a tool that we developed to help with the flow. So you can attach it to an application that is pulled for verification. And it kind of guides you along that process, as well as the documentation that you would want to keep track of in case you're audited. And as far as review documentation, this is basically a clip from the information that is included in the household letter. It goes through the different categories of what types of review documentation the household can send in. If they don't have income, they would want to send a note explaining how they provide for their household. Most of the programs, if they're categorical, the program source that they're enrolled in should be able to provide proof of that. We just want to make sure that that information is current, at least as of July 1st or after. So you're going to want to give the household 10 days to respond to that original letter to send in their proof of employment, pay stubs to confirm their income basically, or their program eligibility. The intent of that documentation, the intent of the verification is really to confirm the information that they put on the application at the time that they applied. So in most cases, it should be the time period of about when they submitted their application. However, if that time period is less accurate for the bigger picture of what their earnings would be, then perhaps maybe more of an annual perspective may be a better way to look at it. For households that are self-employed, we do have a list of it's basically from the eligibility manual, the guidance that is provided in there on how that can be looked at for net earnings on self-employed. So if you're not sure about that, definitely check that out. It was a good guide to help with some of that information. And you're going to want to make sure you document that follow-up correspondence with households that don't apply. You are required to follow up at least one time with households that don't reply. You're just going to want to make sure you document that correspondence. So after you have gathered the information from the households, you're going to send the results. It's best to use the form letters that we have on the OPI website or in MAPS. If you do use your software system letters, just make sure that that language is consistent again. If you are moving the household's eligibility benefits up or down, if you're moving them up, you're going to want to give them, you're going to want to make that change within 3 days. If the benefits are going down, then you provide the household 10 days notice before making that change. So on October 31st, we count the number of students on the verification form. And we'll flip back to the form. Okay, so this is where we get into section 3 and section 4 of the form, because you're going to want to make sure that you count the number of students that are not subject to verification, as well as those that are included in the verification pool with the applications. So the ones in section 3 are all the ones that are basically where proof of the program that they have, that they're participating in, we have proof of that. Not all of them are exactly directly certified because we can't count SNAP letters as direct certification, but they're still exempt from the verification process because we do have that proof of eligibility. So 3-2 would be your directly certified that are on SNAP. 3-3 are all the other programs, including TANF, FDPIR, homeless, migrant runaway, foster. We don't generally have Head Start, but so all of those ones that are directly certified are going to be counted here, and all those other programs, and the SNAP ones are going to be right above them. If you have any of those categories of programs that are not directly certified, haven't been confirmed in DCA, then that's where you're going to want to count them in 4-1 instead. So again, the ones on the top have proof that they're in DCA. The ones on the bottom in section 4 do not have the proof of their program. And 3-4 is just the SNAP letter methods. And so moving down to section 4, we have the applications with a case number that were submitted but are not in DCA. Then 4-2, we have your count of students that are free income based, and then 4-3 have reduced price eligible students. And the total of these, I believe in the MAPS report online, I believe it automatically adds these totals for you, but it is a good idea to take a look at those totals to make sure that they align with what you know to be for your district. If they seem high or low, it's a good place to do a double check to make sure things have been reported accurately. And flip back to the presentation here. So November 15th is the deadline. That's the day that all the activities for verification need to be completed by. So what that means is, as of that day, schools should have collected all of the household's information and sent the verification results letter back to the households. That letter is titled, "We have checked your application." For those that have not responded, this means that you've followed up with them, they still haven't responded. And so you're sending them that letter as they did not respond. And yeah. So just to recap those dates, on October 1st, you're going to want to record the application counts for the verification. And from that, you're able to calculate the 3% sample size and then send the household notification letters. On October 31st, you're going to want to record the number of student counts. And by the way, it is good to double check DCA on October 1st and October 31st to ensure that you have the most up-to-date information for this report. I know a lot is changing at the beginning of this school year with eligibilities, and I imagine that many of you may check DCA a bit more in the beginning of the school year, just as the nature of eligibilities are just moving around a lot more, especially at the beginning of the school year. So again, it is important for us to report accurate data on this report. So if you're able to check on those days, the DCA system, or just prior to those days, that would be ideal. And on November 15th, that's the deadline to wrap up the verification process, to collect the household documentation and complete that, send the households their letters of the results. And November 20th is the deadline to submit the verification collection report in MAPS. One other thing I wanted to show everyone, another tool, is USDA developed a toolkit for the verification to help communicate with households. And so I wanted to share the link for this in the materials. So it is under the USDA Child Nutrition Programs. Yeah, you can see the web address up here, but it does have some nice handouts and whatnot, ideas that you can use to maybe help improve some of those responses from households. Here's a nice list of the sources that households can use to send for verification, to get their proof. There's another letter here. If you'd rather use this letter, it is approved because it is a USDA prototype variation. Looks like that's downloading, but yeah. So if you want to check those out, that's another way to possibly help improve some of those responses if you're a school district of larger size that ends up needing to verify a number of applications. Those might be useful resources for you. I think at this time we could open up the chat box and ask some more questions if you have any.